Hello, I'm Becky Kilsby. I'm founder and career coach at Freestyle Careers. And I'm really happy to be with you today for the Communicate You Summit, because this is a topic that is very close to my heart. And the heart of that topic itself is you. Let me explain what I mean, because my topic is actually communicate you in your career choices. And if I tell you a couple of the career changes I've made, you'll understand the kind of thing that I'm going to be sharing. So in my 40s, I retrained as a career guidance practitioner. And I'd previously been a teacher and wanted more directly to help people realize their full potential, but on an individual level. What I was expressing there, what I was communicating, if you like, was something that mattered to me, that idea of potential. It was, if you like, my purpose to do that. Later, and much more recently, I set up my own business, this business, Freestyle Careers. And the reason I did this, giving up a secure and well-paid job to do so, jumping into the uncertain world of being an entrepreneur, was quite simply that what mattered most to me at this point was to be authentic, to be myself, to do something that genuinely felt like who I really was. And by setting up my own business, I knew I could be myself. Every decision I would make would show that. But also I would attract clients who wanted to work with me on that basis. So this is not so much about what we can do. It's so much more about fulfilment and getting the most out of our working lives. So it means enjoying what we do. It means being motivated to go that extra mile. It actually means doing something that's meaningful to you and also something that rewards you in ways that matter to you. So what we're going to do now, I've got some slides for you, so I'm going to share those with you. So bear with me while I just sort that out, and then we'll crack on and you'll be able to see. Let me just get that out of the way. And here we go, communicate you in your career choices. So first of all, let's start with a quote from Simon Sinek, who wrote the book Start With Why, which really is at the heart of everything I'm talking about today. And what I want to think about first are 3 steps to actually get to the heart of this. I've called it know yourself, choose yourself, and be yourself. And know yourself is all about getting very clear about what you have to offer, what your strengths are, what motivates you, what interests you, what gives you purpose, what values are important to you. So knowing as much as you can about yourself, this is really important. And then what do you do with that information? You act on it. So by choosing to prioritize yourself, you are actually making a decision to communicate you, if you like. And from then on, you're going to be yourself. So moving on, let's have a look at another question. And this is something that really interests me. Did you choose your career, or did you fall into it? Now, there isn't a right or a wrong answer, but I know this is important because a lot of career change clients who work with me admit that they fell into their previous career, possibly because it presented itself, or maybe because somebody in the family suggested it, or it seemed the natural thing to do after their training, whatever it might be. But I think it's a good time to ask yourself that question again. Would you actually choose it now? So let's have a look at 4 things that you can actually consider when you're thinking about putting yourself first, choosing you, basically. So firstly, your values. This is so important. Can you be yourself at work? Are you doing work that matters to you? And do you know what your values are and what that means in terms of what you do and how you want to live? Secondly, your fit. Can you use the skills, your favourite skills? Is the culture of the organisation where you work, does that suit you? Is it hierarchical? Is it flexible? Is it one where you can really be yourself? Or do you have to pretend? And finally, are you interested in your work? All of those things tell you how well you fit into your current career. Then another thing to think about is, what does that work give you? What are the benefits for you? If, for example, one of your highest values was flexibility and your workplace didn't allow for any flexibility at all in how many days sick you could have, in how you actually structured your day, you would start to find that very constricting and frustrating, because one of your highest values was being compromised. And the final of these 4 important steps is your life as a whole. How often do we think about this? What kind of life are we trying to create? Because what we do and how we do it is a really important element of that. So these are all things I'm encouraging you to think about. So in today's session, as I said, I'm going to talk about 2 options. Are you going to leave your current work and think about alternatives? One that really gives you the opportunity to express yourself and be who you are. Or if you can't do that, if you're not in a position to actually think about changing direction at the moment, can you engage more deeply in what you're doing based on identifying your values? And values actually are what we're going to be focusing on most. So what are values? So really, I like to say they're what matters most to you. Simple as that. What you prize, what you treasure, what's important to you. And then in maybe your top 5 or 6 values, you might prioritize which is the most important one at the moment. And these can change during your life. Even though your top 5 and 6 are likely to be fairly similar all through your life, their priority might shift. And does your current work allow you to express who you are? Ultimately, if you're looking for fulfilment, you'll be trying to align who you are, your values, for example, with what you do. So Maya Angelou is one of my favourite writers and poets. And I saw this quote from her that really struck a chord with me, and I think it would appeal to anybody who's thinking about a change. She says, "I've learned that making a living is not the same as making a life." So I wonder how you'd answer that question. Are you making a living, or are you actually making a life, which is a much broader concept? So if you're not communicating you, does it matter? Well, I think it matters when it starts to take its toll on your mental and physical well-being. So here are some feelings that indicate you may be not in a position to communicate you. Feeling trapped, drained, confused, lost, squashed, meaningless, stressed, or unhappy. And hopefully not all of those at once. But this is so important to admit when this might be the case, simply because I've noticed that 1 or 2 of the career change clients I've been working with come to me when they're off sick or where they've reached a state of anxiety or depression, and only then are they taking action. So I think it's, excuse me, I'm getting some water. I think it's really important to be aware of the signs that things might not be going as well as you would want them to. Notice these things. So here's another one to really kind of make you see the big picture, if you like. We have 2 lives, and the second begins when we realize we only have one. So you might say that kind of realization is a wake-up call. So if you have that wake-up call and you decide that you want to be more conscious about your career choices, here are 4 things, again, that you can think about to help you actually start to unpick this. So we've talked already a little bit about values, what matters most to you in life, and identifying those. Secondly, what do you love doing? What really lights you up? What makes time disappear? What engages you totally? There's a state called being in flow that really sums this up very well. And I'd say this is where time disappears. You're being challenged just the right amount. You're so absorbed in what you're doing that you don't notice the time. And to help you identify that, the freebie I'm offering along with this virtual summit is a workbook, a download that is called Discover Work That Sets You Alight. And I think that would be a really good starting place to try and understand more about what you love doing. Thirdly, strengths. Really important to understand what comes naturally to you and what talents do you really enjoy using. And really taking stock of that in your current work and in potential work in the future. And I know one of my fellow speakers, Arlene Foster, who's also a coach, but focuses specifically on helping people identify their strengths and then build on those. Look out for Arlene's talk. She'll really give you some excellent pointers on how to get to know your strengths better. And then fourthly, purpose. Now, to me, this is a couple of things. It's about impact and it's about contribution. So what contribution do you already make at work and in life? And what kind of impact do you have on the people around you? And you might say, well, I don't think I have any impact, or I don't know what my contribution is. But I think the easiest way to actually get greater clarity on that is to ask one of your colleagues. Just ask them, quite simply, what do you think I'm best at? And that's a really good place to start. What has that meaning for you? So Brainy Brown, she is perhaps my top read at the moment. I'm sure you will have heard of her. She's a great speaker on TEDx, and she's a frequent guest on Oprah's Couch. She's also an academic and has done a huge amount of research into human behaviour. What we do, how we express emotions, how we dodge them most of the time, and how we don't communicate ourselves because it's scary. But this, I think this quote is so good because it really gets a sense of urgency into the endeavour to communicate you. She says there are penalties for leaving big pieces of your life unlived. You're halfway to dead. Get a move on. So that's a real boot up the backside, isn't it? She doesn't really give you a gentle nudge. That's much more, what are you going to do? You haven't got long. So I thought I'd just quickly share my wake-up call, and mine was definitely a physical symptom. Yes, I had some of those unhappy feelings that I described earlier on, but my wake-up call was a sensation in my stomach that felt like a boulder, and it really wasn't going away. It was actually getting worse and worse and heavier, and I physically felt myself just being pulled down, being restricted. And when I realised that I couldn't ignore that, it was the final piece in the jigsaw that helped me make the decision to create and launch Freestyle Careers. So today I can communicate myself hugely. And I think you can probably see in my body language, that is a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. So why is this so wonderful? Well, simply because my values are aligned with what I do, who I work with, and why. I'm using my favourite strengths, which are coaching, which are communication, which ultimately is about inspiring people to do this for themselves. I can also now attract clients who resonate with that message, that genuine, real message. People know when you're pretending. This is real. So I can also express it in my branding. You'll see from that picture there, colours are bright. There's energy in my branding and there's optimism, because those are the messages that are part of the journey of actually finding more fulfilling work. And I can honestly say that my purpose is fully expressed. I'm inspiring people to get to know what it is they really want out of their life and their work, and to do something about it. So in case you think it's just for people like teachers or me or women of a certain age or whatever it is, I thought I'd take a quote from somebody in a very different situation from me. This is Sigmund, and he's CEO of a tech company in the States. And he'd got right to the top of the tree. He wasn't happy. So this is what he had to say. I made it to the highest point in my profession, but still felt lost and unsure of myself. So I hired a coach who helped me explore my personal values. No one had ever spoken to me about them. I bet that resonates. This is how I found my life's purpose. It's the foundation for everything I do. Start with your values. You'll never feel fulfilled in a job, role, relationship, or activity if you don't honor them. And that is honestly my message today. So why are values so important, and how can you live them? Well, according to the research, our values, what matters most to us, are what actually drives our beliefs, so the assumptions we make about how the world works and our place in it, but then also guides our behaviors. So you can see their influence is massive. So how do you get to know your values? Well, one thing I do with my clients is to actually work through a checklist, a simple checklist, and to really put some time pressure on them so that they choose their top 10 and then work down to their top 5. So a list of 5 words that really resonate with them. But that isn't the only thing I do, because I don't think that goes quite deep enough. I also look at history, individuals' history. So what peak experience, what lows in their lives? Why were those events and occasions important to them? And then we can dig into that and find the values that are at work there. Same, another simple way to do this is to think, what is your ideal weekend? And that's a lovely thing to do, actually, to do as a dream, and then make it happen, of course. But that again will reveal values, things that matter to you, things that are important to you. But the reverse of that is also really helpful. When do you feel in conflict with someone or something? That's likely to be pressing on one of your highest values. So when you know these 5 or 6 highest values, you can see that if you start to work from those points and look for opportunities to express them, it's very different from sleepwalking and adopting beliefs you may have inherited from your parents, from people around you, from the organization. We make assumptions all the time. So I think what I'm trying to say here is that be more conscious, know your values, act on them, and that alters not only what is possible, opens up what is possible, it alters your beliefs and therefore impacts your behaviors. So we actually work on strengthening and activating those values because they make a fantastic, authentic basis on which to make decisions and ultimately to be you. So just quickly, this is the four ways in which I work with this with my career change clients. First of all, getting that clarity. What are my 5 or 6 highest values? But also being super honest. There is no room for should in this. There is no point for saying something you think you ought to have. Like, for example, integrity is a good one. You think you need to write down integrity because, of course, everybody needs to have integrity. But it isn't necessarily one of your highest and guiding principles in life. It might be something you do and behave like that, but it may not be something you actually want to consider above other things. So you have to be absolutely honest with yourself. Then you can use that information to evaluate options in front of you. And this goes for life as well as for career. So how can you actually choose something that enables you to express yourself in that? And then by choosing from that place, you are really, really giving yourself a solid ground to actually build on, which is such a powerful thing. So that's about career change and how you can use values to actually help you understand what you're looking for in a career change. But if your position is different, if you stay where you are, how can you actually engage more at work? So here's a piece of research that was part of a report commissioned in 2017 on the subject of employee engagement, still a very, very hot topic. And their question to 1,500 employees was, did you have a good day at work? And the specific question, how many days out of 5 would you rate as a good day? Now, the results, I think, are quite alarming. So 10% said no days were good days. Now, that is just so awful and depressing to think that we're going to be working for 30 or 40 years, and that's what we're saying about the vast proportion of our life. Heartbreaking, really. So 18% were on the opposite end of the spectrum, said every day is a good day. Wow, fantastic. And the average was 3.007 days out of 5. So a question for you, how would you rate your work? How would you rate it? How many days out of 5 would you consider to be good days? And yeah, don't worry if you can't answer that easily, because every day, every week might be different for you. So you could think of a typical week, or you could think of 2 different parts of your job, and what would a week doing that be like, and what would a week doing the other side of it be like, and then rate it in those terms. So that's one way of thinking about the work you're doing at the moment. But another way is very specifically about your values and the organisational values. Because I think it's easy to see that in some places values have a very bad press, simply because some organisations have used it really as a lip service, just an exercise to be able to write up 6 or 7 values on the lobby wall. So when visitors come in, they can see the values. They're on their website. But they don't do anything about it. They don't live it. They don't enable people who work in that organisation to engage with those values. How about if it was different? How about by knowing your own personal values, really knowing them in the way that I've been talking about, and then looking at the corporate values within your organisation, finding then that wonderful sweet spot in the middle, connecting those and being able to act upon them. So showing the connection, if you like. So it would be a little bit around digging into what that organisational value might mean, really getting below the surface. You know, if somebody says innovation, what does that actually mean? And when you actually string that out, it might be about creativity, it might be about competitiveness, it might be about excellence, could be all kinds of things that actually come from that word innovation. And then in your own values, if you've got a value of excellence, you can actually see, okay, we're on the same page there. I just need to find a way of, you know, using that in what I'm doing and being able to explain it. And I think one thing that really makes this much more possible is the culture of the organisation and whether values are spoken of on a daily basis, or whether your manager is actually open to this conversation. It would form an excellent aspect of an annual review or a regular review to actually talk about your values and how you can express them at work, or not, perhaps. But this is something I think that organisations could do a lot more on, and this is something I'm really interested in developing as well. So one final piece of research that I want to talk to you about, and I've adapted this model, which is the sustainable happiness model. And this is ultimately about communicating you. I've added values into this piece of research. The burdens and gaps are the positives, are the negatives. The boosts and gifts are the positives, and your values are what matters most to you. So if you were talking about the burdens and gaps, you'd be identifying the frustrations in your work, Maybe it's that you, for 90% of the week, you have to use a skill that really doesn't do anything for you. You can do it, but really, really don't like it. Or similarly, weaknesses, identifying weaknesses and then being able to do something about that. For example, I know a weakness of mine is really around spreadsheets. It's also a burden. It's not just a gap, it's a burden. So if I could find somebody else in the team for whom that was a strength, that would be a wonderful swap. So again, can you see how this could open up conversations in the corporate world, in your organization? So how can you kind of outsource the things you're not good at? How can you share the things that frustrate you with other people who actually would love to do that? So it's about having those conversations within a team, between teams. And then the boosts and gifts is the reverse of this. So what do you love doing and how much of that can you do in a week? What are your greatest strengths and how often do you get to actually deploy those? Again, how can you have the conversation so that you can do more of that kind of work and maybe taking something from somebody else for whom it's a burden or a gap? This is a win-win. It's fantastic. And if we can link that in with the idea of taking responsibility for seeking that fulfillment and actually acting on that value, how amazing that would be at work. So we're almost at the end of my session, but I want to just have a look at this one values-driven case study. This was one of my clients I wanted to talk about, and she came to me when she was freelancing. She was doing very well. She had a lot of work. She was well paid, but she wasn't happy. She actually felt frustrated. She was isolated. She didn't feel like she was getting recognition for her work. It really wasn't fitting her at all. So when she came to me, we did work around her values. And what we discovered were that her highest values were around collaboration, appreciation, travel, actual foreign travel comes to that, friendship, as in finding deep relationships at work and building up that sense of team as well, and making a difference in the work she did. So you can, I'm sure you can see immediately why she was feeling so frustrated with being a freelancer. She was isolated. She wasn't part of a team. She wasn't getting the appreciation because she was moving from one project to another. She didn't have the opportunity for that wider progression and travel within a larger organization. So she was feeling pretty hopeless when I actually saw her. But when she got clear on these values, it inspired her almost immediately to start looking for organizations who shared those values. And what's more, even more importantly, whose culture had an open, flexible kind of an approach that allowed her to discuss that. She could see that from the interactions on the website, from their social media, from all kinds of collateral they were using that actually told her that they were her kind of organization. And she was able to use that information and that sense of connection when she wrote her application, when she sent in her CV, when she developed her LinkedIn profile. It was all there for them to see. And she could communicate and articulate that wonderfully when it came to her interview. One session we had in the diary, and she came on with a huge beam across her face, and she said, "I've got some news." And what she'd done, without me even knowing she'd applied for a job, she'd been and got herself a new role with Adobe as partner marketing manager. And she was over the moon because she had connected with them in this very genuine way, and she was excited about the prospects ahead of her. So there's just one example to show you that it is possible. It really is possible to communicate you and win, get what you really want. So finally, I'm offering a couple of reductions on some of the services that I use with clients. And the first one of these is values discovery. So if you want to get absolutely clear about your highest values, about what matters most to you, then this is the one for you, basically. It's 2 hours of coaching and all the exercises and resources that we use to do that. You'll learn what your highest values are. You'll learn how to strengthen them, how to use them to make decisions, how to grow them and act upon them. Now, usually those two sessions come at a cost of £159, and for you lucky people, you can actually grab it for £99. So that's a great bargain, I think. All you have to do is contact me by email, becky@freestylecareers.com, or contact me via my website, and all I'll need is proof that you were on this summit. And the second option is if you want to make a complete change, or at least explore what your options could be, the Quick Step Career Change Program is the one that's really going to help you. And this is a comprehensive and accredited program. So I'm licensed to deliver it by Firework, and it's for coaches to help their clients change career direction. It's a 6-session program, so 6 hours of coaching, and it's got a wealth of resources, so lots of activities and exercises, visualizations, audio, resources that you can use again and again, actually, not just for this career change, but maybe for another one 10 years down the line. You'll know exactly how to evaluate your options. So normally this is £480, and I'm offering you a lovely reduction so that it's £439 for you. So one final thing, do connect with me on social. Every day I'm putting out tips, linking to articles I write on my website. So whether you're a fan of any of these social media platforms, do connect with me there. And my final word, again, is from a poet, but this is the one thing that really inspires me. And it's simply this question, and I'm going to leave you with this question. What is it you plan to do with this one wild and precious life? So, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to see if I can get out of here and work out how I can end the meeting. I think I can end it. Oh, gone. No, there. So, that's the end for me. I can't find how to stop it, so you're going to have to stop it there. Thanks so much, and I hope that you will be able to join lots of other of the talks now. Okay, have a great day.